I start to ask myself this: are you prepared? Something's falling for you inside your head. Help me, creeping up now, take you over this ground.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
And we're back on Paranormal After Dark for another week with the Roadie, and I've got a very special guest this week. It's something different to a lot of the paranormal stuff I've spoken to over the last few months. The Side-Eye Guy from the channel on YouTube, Side-Eye Guy. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Good. Now, I guess we should just get people to, for the people listening, just tell us a little bit about the Side-Eye Guy channel and what you do on there first up.
What many call me is a paranormal debunker. So I debunk, whether it be TV shows or YouTube channels or psychic mediums. I debunk the ones that I believe are bullshit. But equally, I every now and then will make a video where I kind of celebrate and make an effort to highlight those who I don't think are bullshitting. The ones who I think are doing it honestly.
Okay, so what got you started down the debunking road?
Well, I've always kind of had an interest in the paranormal. When I was a kid, I think I saw something, but I am consistent with my debunks. I, to this day, still try and debunk what I believe I may have seen. But that's a whole other story. But as far as I didn't start off by being a debunker, I just wanted to be a reaction channel, actually, and in many ways, I still am heavily a reaction channel. I just like watching some of the more extremely ridiculous paranormal videos, and there's plenty of them on YouTube. Insanity. And I got into watching quite a lot of that, and I just had a lot of fun watching it. Actually, this all kind of really, the Side-Eye Guy channel kicked off around Halloween 2022. And I was up late one night by myself, the kids are asleep, and on YouTube, I didn't have the mental space to watch a whole horror movie. So I was just watching like my favorite horror movie scenes on YouTube. And I was probably just got done after watching I don't know, Halloween or whatever. And a recommended video came up of Sam and Colby. And I never heard of them before. And I was like, oh, this looks exciting. It's got millions of views. It's got two young lads with very pale faces and very unusually wide eyes, talking about catching a demon on camera or whatever it was. And I watched that and I just thought it was the funniest, most ridiculous, preposterous thing I'd seen in a long time. So I kind of got hooked, but probably for all the wrong reasons that a lot of the ghost hunters put it on for. So I watched Sam and Colby, I watched Exploring with Josh, I watched Twin Paranormal, and eventually there was one video, and it was Exploring with Josh. He was with Sam and Colby, and they were at somewhere called Harriman Hospital in Tennessee, USA. And I won't go into it, but it was so utterly ridiculous that the whole idea of the Side-Eye Guy popped in my head after watching that. I knew exactly what I wanted the channel to be.
I get that because I watch a lot of them too, and it's what gets me, I guess, is the fan base where they'll utterly believe channels like that. That, oh, you know, it's so true. But yet, when you watch another channel that's doing an honest investigation, nothing happens. And I kind of think, why are these people attracting everything? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
everything happens to them.
Be very special. But if you read, because I've read a lot of comments now, and I think some people do believe that there are people that just get like spirits just get attracted to. I think that's a lot of the theory behind it. That they kind of say, "Oh, you must be like a beacon to spirits. They're just attracted to you. They just follow you around, or they make themselves." I was like, "Well, you know, I guarantee if you just ask their parents of these ghost hunters or their friends, they're not just having shit pop up around them. You know, they're not just getting bangs and whispers and, you know, apparitions. You know, it only seems to happen when the cameras are on."
Well, that's exactly right. And so what? I mean, let's talk about that. What's your view on the so-called paranormal? I mean, when we're talking paranormal, we're talking about ghosts and demons and UFOs and all that stuff. Do you think any of this stuff exists, or are we out there wasting our time looking at this stuff? What do you think?
It's a good question. It's a very broad one. Like, so, you know, yeah, there's certain like sections within the paranormal, isn't there? Whether you're talking about, you know, spirits or demons, or as you say, UFOs or cryptids and all the rest of it. Ultimately, I think very little of it is real, exists in any way. I would love to be wrong. This is the thing. What keeps getting me interested in the paranormal is that we all kind of, even the most staunch skeptic, we all want it to be real, don't we? Like, it's more, the world's more exciting stuff is real. I think that's the real draw to it. But my brain works in a way that I can't believe in something just because I want it to. Like, I need some kind of evidence for it, and that's really what we're lacking in many ways.
That's right.
Is evidence.
The way I look at it is, and you know, I've been watching Star Trek since the early 70s. So I always say everything I ever learnt in life, I learnt from Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
And so in Star Trek, there's been a lot of like parallel universe, you know, sort of time things going on, and I often look at it as, are people actually experiencing things, or but it's not. Yep. It's not the traditional ghost that we think it is, but it might in fact be another universe at exactly the same time, and it just happens at that particular time and moment you happen to come across each other for a fleeting second, and you're actually in different universes.
I honestly, I've not seen any evidence to support that. I would say, I don't know if you want to call it statistically or at least theoretically, that is more likely than someone who has died and what we might call a soul or a spirit lingers on. Certainly more, I would say, me personally, I would say it's more likely than what you just hypothesize is more, has more likelihood of being accurate than demons. Like that to me is just a zero. Like,
that's right.
There's no such thing as demons.
That's right. I was going to bring that up in a sec, but just to finish off that part, I'm with you. I'd like to believe that the spirit world exists, but the thing for me that grasps me is sometimes I just can't work out if we say, just for shits and giggles, that it exists in the linear way that we think it does. Why would somebody be sitting in their old house for eternity, just rattling around in there, you know, kind of like, for example, I spent a lot of years working in the theatre industry, and it was supposed to be theatre ghosts and stuff, and the last theatre I was in had a legitimate person who, within the lifetime of some of the people in my theatre, knew the man. He was a live-in caretaker, and he died there in the 80s, and there were several kind of over the years sightings of this alleged caretaker in the building, and my brain's a little bit like yours. I look for a logical explanation for it, you know. And in fact, I had an experience where it could have been, you could take it as a ghost kind of thing. It was like, so for example, I was in the lighting box doing my end of show shutdown. I look out into the auditorium, and in a particular seat that was empty all night, there was an old chap sitting there with a hat on. Now, the hat thing was significant because we have a self-portrait of the particular man in the foyer. The hat looked like his. So this old chap's sitting there. I look away. I'm doing what I have to do. I look back. He's gone, okay? Now, my wife was the front of house manager, and she was coming up, tidying the seats up as she went up. And on the way home that night, I said, who was the old chap sitting in the front seat, the front row seat there on the end? And she said, there wasn't anyone there. I said, yeah, there was. Now, okay, I said that to a couple of people, and they go, it's Frank, Frank. But my brain was, it was probably just someone waiting for a cast member. And he just happened to sit there when I looked. Yeah.
I mean, that is far more like the thing is like you're able to think that somewhere. There'll be some people that will just hook, line, and sinker think that they've seen a ghost.
Well, that's right. I mean, I've worked in other big theatres where they said, I saw someone in the wings and a shadow in the wings, and I'm thinking, yeah, there's probably crew over there. But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I'm Fox Mulder. I want to believe,
Yeah. See, it's interesting because I used to work in theatre as well back in when I lived in London, and I worked in a theatre in the West End, and exactly the same. There was stories of that place being haunted. I worked at a big gig venue, a concert venue, in London, and there was talks of that place being haunted. I never saw anything. Seems to be something about, I don't know what it is about theatres. The only thing I can kind of like, if I'm going to take the paranormal sense out of it, is that they sell tickets for things, and that might get people to go, let's go check that place out, maybe we'll see a ghost, catch a show and see a ghost. I don't know, but it makes me wonder why theatres there's so many theatres that are supposedly haunted.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. The last theatre I worked in here in Dunedin, Paranormal New Zealand, a team from Auckland came down and wanted to investigate it because they'd heard the story. So I spent the night there with the guys from Paranormal New Zealand, Mark and Sam and the guys. And the weird thing was, the building always creaked. It always made noises. There was always bangs because it was a 160-year-old house that a theatre had been built onto, okay? So you'll get in and get noises and stuff. And when I worked in there on my own at night, you'd hear the noises. It was always there. The night that we were there investigating, the place was dead silent. There was not a noise. And at the end of the night, we were talking about it, and Mark said, I've never been in a building that's so quiet. And I said, there's your haunting. That was the spirit activity. They were keeping quiet.
Yeah.
But I've often thought about theatres. Perhaps it's the residual energy thing. Performances have gone on there for years and years and years, so the energy of the performances stick around. I don't know.
That could be something, or it could be something what you said earlier, where you're like, why on earth would you just want to haunt your boring old house? Or maybe they want to go to somewhere that there's going to be a show on. You know what I mean? You're going to be entertained for the afterlife. I don't know, but it all just seems a little bit fishy and weird to me, because like this on that point as well, I always find it really interesting, the lore, like LORE, the lore of ghosts, and like where they're supposed to be haunting, because I hear a lot of things like what we just mentioned, where the ghosts go kind of where their happy place is or where they got good memories. Other people will say cemeteries are haunted, where the bodies are buried. Then you'll hear it's the place where the person died, whether it was like, of natural causes or a murder or, suicide, whatever it might be. That's the place where they haunt. Other people will say it's where a traumatic event happened, like a particular traumatic experience of their life, and that's why they're haunted. And the longer I do this side-eye guy thing, the longer I look into this, the only thing that really makes sense in the whole thing is it's whoever is making the claim of why there's a ghost, they have a profit to be made from it. It's from people who own a haunted location. They'll make up, or they'll use the law of how ghosts are attracted to a certain place for however it's convenient for them to keep those quote unquote ghosts in their property. And we've seen this happen with very recently a very famous or infamous haunted location, the Conjuring House. for the longest time, it's in the movie. Bathsheba Sherman, Bathsheba Sherman, Bathsheba Sherman's a witch. She cursed the land. She killed her children when she was alive. Like back in like the 17th century or whenever it was, and then she killed her own children, and then when she was caught and um, executed, she put a curse on the land that she's going to, hurt other children or whatever. We now know complete bollocks. We went through the historical archives. Complete nonsense. Like she's a completely innocent woman that has been slandered for hundreds of years. That's not true. Not hundreds of years. It all started when the Warrens went to the Conjuring House, and it was actually Caroline Perrin, who was the mother of the Perrins, who at the Conjuring House, it just so happened that they used to have a dog called Bathsheba, and when she was going through like the Harris, is it Harrisonville or Harronville. I forget the name of the town now where the Conjuring House is, or the area. Burrillville, I believe it is. She went through like a lot of the archives there, and the name Bathsheba, she was drawn to probably because she had a dog called Bathsheba, and that's it. This woman who died hundreds of years ago, for the last 50, 60 years, has just been slandered over and over and over again. Now, once we realize now that there's no truth, no evidence to support this Bathsheba Sherman thing is real, the Conjuring House has now kind of gone, we can't talk about Bathsheba because, it's quite disgusting. People are destroying her headstones. They're desecrating her grave because Hollywood and the current owners of the Conjuring House are slandering, can't now continue this myth of Bathsheba. So it's gone down to the Arnolds, who were the first, I believe, or the early settlers of the Conjuring House, who may or may not have died in the actual house. We don't even really have any historical records about that. So that's where the hauntings have changed now. So this is what it comes down to with these haunted places, is that usually it's surrounded by mythology, and the lore of ghosts will change all the time, depending on who is making a profit out of it.
And that's the fascinating part for me on its own. So the ghosts change residents over the years, or when the residents of the house change, for example, that house, different families move in, the ghosts aren't there.
Yeah, exactly. Al Capone is haunting about 50 different places around Chicago. It goes out as far as the Midwest in America. He's all over the place, Al Capone.
Busy man.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up demons before, and I wanted to pitch to you, being a debunker, my theory on demons. I watched a lot of these shows, and what happens is they have to exorcise the demon or exorcise the house, right? And the thing that always gets me is that it always has to be a Catholic priest that comes in and does it, right? And my thoughts were, why does it have to be a Catholic priest? Then I started to think over the years. I thought, I know, it's but what you're just talking about. It's kind of profit, right? It's, to me, the Christian Church or the Catholic Church has made up demons to give themselves business. If they don't have demons, they can't. You get what I'm saying?
You actually have no idea how right you are with that as well. So I was talking to was it Kenny Biddle told me this not so long ago, that that the demons, sorry, that I think it was in the 1970s. I think this happened. The church in America, the Catholic Church in America, was noticing a decline. It was a decline in numbers, and they devised a plan. This is when the whole, this probably would have been on the back of something like The Exorcist was massively popular, had huge cult status, and they made a conscious effort, allegedly, to pretty much bring demons in a very big way back into the church, to make it a thing, to get people excited and fearful, and it may give an element of danger into it for young people. And it seems to have worked. There are now in in the last, believe it's 5 to 10 years, there are more. This is in America anyway. More exorcisms in America than any other time in history.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, because when you go back through history and you go back through other religions, they had deities. But if we look at ancient Britain, for example, they had deities that were good or bad, but they weren't demons. You get what I'm saying? They weren't demons, and they were. Even the Norse had bad deities, good deities. The demonic thing has always bugged me, because it's like, so you're possessed by a demon, but then I always suspected it was probably something like that, and it always bugged me that I couldn't read a book on the internet and then go and become an exorcist. No, you have to be a Catholic priest. Why can't I get the local Anglican priest?
You have to be a Catholic priest, and then you've got to study something in demonology, complete nonsense, and it doesn't. And this is the thing: you don't have to be a Catholic priest to perform an exorcism. Like, that's something that's complete nonsense as well. It's just an ownership that the Catholic Church want to have.
Well, that's right. Kind of the whole process of it too.
Nothing to say you need to be a priest to be an exorcist.
No, that's true. But the whole process of it too makes me laugh. There's supposedly these entities that are demonic and they're evil and they're doing all this shit in the house and they're possessing people and that, right? Yet a dude can just walk in, say some Latin, throw some water around and burn some sage, and that gives you power to get rid of the thing. If it's that easy, why can't I do it myself?
I always thought, the funniest thing I always thought was, like, with all these like YouTube videos where they're screaming and they're yelling and they're panicked and they go, "Oh my God, this is good. This is hurting me," and they got scratch marks down them. When it's time for them to go home, they just literally say out to, like, they're talking to the walls. Let's face it. They just shout out into this empty space, "You're not allowed to follow us home. You have to stay here." And this demon or poltergeist or malevolent energy just goes, "Oh, that's a shame. Okay." Why? Like, if it's supposed to be this demon, why just saying you're not allowed to do this? Why do they obey it?
Well, that's my point exactly. This is Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie. I'm speaking to the Side-Eye Guy. We'll be right back after this.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie on Rocket FM.
Nightmares and Daydreams from San Francisco there with Shadows in the Dark. And we're back, and we were speaking about demons there, and you're dead right. It leads into another thing where you've got you just tell them to go away and they go away. It's Ouija boards are the other thing that crack me up. Apparently, you open portals if you don't do it properly, and you shut portals. And I'm like, really? I never bought into the Ouija board thing, right, ever, because I just sit there and think, why, if this board, if a spirit can speak to you through this board, why do you need to touch the planjet to make it move? Can't the demon move it on its own?
Every time, it's always you have to touch in order for the spirit to move through you. Isn't that fucking convenient?
Convenient, exactly, very convenient. It's really weird, that whole thing. It just, and to me, that kind of then stuff like that, the demons and the Ouija boards and all that sort of stuff, then kind of makes the whole paranormal thing laughable. And people who are skeptics start to laugh and just go, what a load of shit, right? And the serious investigators who are trying to get something, their credibility goes down because, oh, you're a investigator, it's kind of...
Since starting this channel, because a lot of people think that ghost hunters really don't like me, and that's actually far from the truth. The ones who are very, let's be kind and say very questionable, they don't like me. But the ones who have got nothing to hide, they think I'm great. They're big fans. And I've collaborated with them. I've been on some paranormal investigating ghost hunts with them. And they tell me outright, they get very frustrated with it because I can't fault them for this. They believe what they're doing. And, it's like they're trying to find answers to arguably the biggest question we have. Is there life after death? Is there something after the lights go out?
You brought up going out with investigators, with teams. Now, when you've gone out, and I've seen you on video go out with some teams where you've got absolutely nothing, okay, at all. Now, have you ever gone out with a team or gone on an investigation and something's happened that you actually haven't been able to explain?
No.
No, you've managed to debunk everything.
Either you managed to debunk it, or when you review the footage, it really wasn't that big a deal in the first place. Now, by ghost hunting standards, I haven't been on very many ghost hunts. I've been, I believe, I just come back from my very first ever solo one where I was just out by myself. I believe that's my 11th. And, so I've not been on that many. I've got a lot more planned in the future. Over in America, I'm planning to go over to America in a couple of months. But as paranormal investigators go, I'm still a noob. I'm still quite green in the field. And when you talk to the honest investigators who do this, they will say to you straight, you can go on 50 investigations and maybe one thing will happen.
That's exactly right. The paranormal New Zealand guys I've gone out with a couple of times, same thing. They can go to. They've got a couple of places in Auckland that they go to, and they've been going to for years to document what's going on. And they can sit there for. In fact, it was one of the places we were in. We sat there for hours with them, nothing happened. And that's the reality of it, right? But it is interesting the whole thing of I watch some of the teams and I want to comment, but I often don't because I don't want to kind of cause a shitstorm because some of them are very honest teams. But for example, the part where they enhance the audio, right? Now, microphones, when you change the levels and stuff, can give you noises that aren't there normally, or electronics can give you noises, and I often hear some of the stuff and I go, I think that's an electronic noise. I can't pin it, but I think it might be a microphone or a piece of equipment, a camera or something, and there's so many variables like that kind of. Some of them want to hang on it, and that's cool. And I could be wrong, right? But I just think a lot of them it is that, and but the one bugbear that I have, and I'm sure you'll agree with me here. The one bugbear that I have with that sort of stuff is what they call the spirit box, the bloody FM radio, the FM radio. Okay, I watched one team where they were sitting there telling everyone that they'd detuned the FM radio, and And to start with, you can't detune an FM radio. And we've pulled the antenna out. And in fact, inside they still have an antenna, even if you pull the telescope. The telescopic antennas are pretty useless, right? And you've still got an antenna inside. And this, but it's scanning backwards. Doesn't bloody matter. You're still getting broadcast radio, right? There's that much broadcast radio in the FM bands that shit's going to happen. And you're telling me that a ghost, like if I'm a ghost, I'm a radio guy, but I put myself in the shoes of a spirit one night, and I sat there and thought to myself, would I go to all the bloody effort of manipulating some radio stations to talk to someone? No, I bloody wouldn't.
No. So the theory, but first of all, before I explain what I'm going to say here, 100% I agree with you on this. But the theory that the people who believe in spirit boxes are giving is that you're not listening to the radio. You're supposed to be listening to a white noise behind the white noise that the spirit box is giving by scanning radio frequencies very, very quickly. But the problem is that's actually never what happens. You're normally picking out one or two words that just so happen to be said at the time that the spirit box has gone over that radio frequency. So I've always kind of put it like this when people say this to me, is like, because what all the spirit box is a radio. That's it. It's a radio. Nothing more, it's nothing less. It's a very expensive radio because this is what happens when you slap ghosts or paranormal or supernatural onto any device, the price goes up by 5 times the amount. And I have one of these spirit boxes. It was donated to me. So what is a spirit box? Is it either a radio, which is exactly what it is? It is a radio. There's no two ways about it. It is a radio. By definition, it's a radio. Is it when you switch it on and it's going through the frequencies, is it doing exactly what it's built to do, or is it talking to spirits?
Well, theoretically, it's doing exactly what it's built to do. I mean, it's scanning frequencies.
It's not. I don't understand the fascination with spirit boxes, and then somehow though, and this is usually in the world of YouTube, that they've made the spirit box even less reliable because YouTubers really enjoy doing what we call an Estes session, and all an Estes session is one person listens to the radio being played. So instead, where before with the spirit box, the camera can, or the microphone can pick up the spirit box. So everyone listening can interpret what is being heard, and they can listen to what's being heard and interpret it however they want. But when you do an Estes session, you've now eliminated that. So literally one person is listening to it and interpreting it how they think they're hearing it. And they could be making it up as they go along.
Well, that's exactly right.
Verify what they're hearing.
That's exactly right. And the thing is, too, is what you must remember with white noise on the FM band, the AM band, and shortwave, all of the radio frequencies, right? There's still noise on the frequencies in between, and FM frequencies will often have carrier frequency and just an offset on the other side for the stereo. You can be picking up one of those harmonics of the frequency that's got a noise on it. So to me, I laugh at that because I just think there's too many. Radio is noise. I mean, if you can tune a shortwave radio in now, and there's hardly anyone broadcasting on shortwave these days, but you'll still get noises on there because there's noise in the natural radio frequency around, and that's where I just think, really, I hear them and I go, no, it's a radio. There's nothing. It's nothing more than a radio. You can't. Just.
So there's a thing that they call I think it's called a Faraday bag or a Faraday box, and it's where you put the radio or the spirit box into this bag. And don't ask me, I couldn't tell you what the bag is made of, but it pretty much is built to disrupt all radio frequencies reaching the antenna. And I did this in the Bel Air house in America. Nothing came through.
Well, that's the whole point of the Faraday box, a Faraday cage or a box. That's right. It stops radio frequencies coming in, and going out.
So that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, if the idea is that it's supposed to be a white noise that the ghosts are supposed to communicate through. First of all, anything can create a white noise. You can turn your TV on and make sure it's not on a TV. Pull the aerial out or whatever, and then there you go. You've got white noise. Like there's so many different ways to have white noise, but when you get white noise where there's no none of the radio stations coming through whatsoever, nothing, absolutely.
That's right.
Nothing.
But there's always noise. There's always some. If you listen hard enough, especially with the headphones on, there's noise in radio frequencies. Even when you're not on a broadcast band, there's always noises there. Like this is what they talk about so hard. Just digressing a little bit, when they talk about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and they're pointing these radio telescopes out into space, right? They're so hard to discern a signal because everything in the universe is putting out a radio frequency. Stars, electronics. So in the white noise, there's always something in there, and if you want to hear it, you'll hear it. It's a kind of thing that really does bug me. And the other one that bugs me is the EMF thing, because again, there's so much electromagnetic frequencies around. Even in an old abandoned house, you could still have wiring in there that's got an alarm that's got EMF in, and again, it's kind of very, very hard.
Also, this is the other thing as well. And this is what it all comes down to, because the whole notion of ghosts. And don't get me wrong, I feel bad picking on ghost hunters when they want to pick up EMF, but because they are trying these things, whether they're being misled or as long as they're not being heavily misled or manipulate the situation. But the point I'm trying to make is where's even the evidence to support that ghosts carry EMF or any kind of electromagnetic kind of energy.
That's it. And I mean, I'm like you.
Know.
I don't want to disparage them because maybe I'm wrong, but there's so many other factors that create EMF and radio frequency that if they are trying to communicate, it's going to be, as I say, it's going to be like SETI. It's going to be so hard to discern the signal, right, that you're probably not going to get it anyway with everything else in there. So it's I don't know, it's very hard.
It comes down to a lot of these things where there's a lot of things within the ghost hunting world that are just thought of as this is the theory and this is what we've got to work on, and this must be how to communicate with ghosts. And because ultimately we have no solid evidence whatsoever with anything supernatural related, it's all just it's less than theory, really, because it's a hypothesis. It's we've really got nothing to go by.
Well, that's exactly it. And the thing that bugs me about it, and I mean, again, I'd love it. I really want it to think that there is another world and another life, afterlife, and all that. But the thing that makes me wonder, Harry Houdini's an example, but also Art Bell, who did Coast to Coast AM, the radio show. I don't know if you know about it or not, but it was a paranormal radio show in America. It's still on. He hosted it, and I've listened to a lot of his old archive shows where he said, geez, if I get to the other side, if there is another life, I'm going to try and communicate back. He said the same thing Houdini did. To my knowledge, putting aside people like Steve Huff and all them, we won't go into that, it's another subject, right? But putting aside people like that, to my knowledge, he's never been able to communicate back. No. Likewise, Harry Houdini said the same thing to his wife, that he would try and communicate.
So just quickly, my grandmother has done exactly that with my mum. Exactly the same. They both. My mum still believes in it for some reason. Still big into psychics, and it does my head in. But this is one of the things. I said, if Nan could have sent you a message, she would have done it. Because I know. But we don't know how this works. She may not have been able to. She may have gone on to heaven rather than remained here, kind of thing. And it's okay, you can't. The thing is though, There's also an element of this whole thing as well where I don't know how much I want to... I'm happy to debunk people who I personally think are scamming other people, whether that be psychics, whether that be YouTubers who are literally making money off giving people false hope and empty promises and just feeding them a bullshit narrative. I'm happy to do that. But when it comes to an individual who wants to believe in the paranormal because it brings them comfort because they're going through a grieving process, I don't want to be the guy to say, oh, by the way, that's all a load of bollocks. You know what I mean? I'm not that guy. However, that can even go too far. And we've seen this where people get literally addicted to psychics, to psychic readings. and they go over and over and over again because they can't let go of a loved one that's passed on, and the psychics are scamming them.
That's a perfect segue there, because I wanted to segue into psychics and get your thoughts on them. And again, I've watched a few of these YouTube ones where they'll walk in and they'll say, I think it was one of yours actually. I think it was one of your debunking ones, an American one where the woman was very, very vague, and she was just throwing out general statements until they stuck or they didn't. You know, it was kind of like I watched a lot of them over the years, and I've even had some people in my years in theatre saying I'm psychic, and I've tested them, and the probability was that they were either getting lucky or they heard something and they guessed at it. But the one for me that really, I guess, debunked it all was the Darren Brown video where he set himself up as a psychic, went to America to this the Spiritualist Church, and set himself up there, and the woman who led the Spiritualist Church said he's the most psychic person I've ever met.
Yep.
And Darren Brown explained how he did it.
He went. I remember seeing that episode, one where he went into a room full of people. He said at the end of it, we asked their permission after the fact, and because they were like, he was absolutely talking. He said things that only we knew, all that kind of stuff, and he spoke to like all these families, and he convinced every single one of them that he was talking to their loved ones. And Darren Brown did that very well. He said in that things like, I don't know if it's possible. I don't believe you can talk to the dead, but I don't know. He's like, it might be possible. If it is, I've not seen it. He's very fair with these sort of things.
Well, that's right, and he did it right. But what impressed me was he kind of broke it down, and you could watch the video where once you realised what he was doing, like he was throwing out general statements, and it was just sticking. Yeah, and it was all about reading the body language. You say something, I've got an old elderly man, and if you look in the room, that person reacted. It's kind of, but you could see the way it was going, where he'd say, I've got this elderly man, I think he's about 50. No, his name's John, Dave. It's Steve. And so straight away, from my brain goes, why are you stuttering on the name? If the guy's talking to you directly, why are you? It's like I was watching one, and I won't name this YouTube channel because the guys are pretty honest. When they go out on their own, you may know who I'm talking about it when I say this. When they go out on their own, the two of them, they're pretty good, but they occasionally they have a so-called psychic tag along with them, and she'll sit there and go, I'm getting this. Does it make sense? And it kind of like they're telling me this, and then you think, well, hang on. If they're talking to you directly, why aren't you able to just say it's John Smith? He died in 1863. This is where it's all there. They're telling me, honestly.
Yeah.
Who believes this? And again, I'd love to. I'm Fox Mulder. I want to believe. But it's just, and good on these. I say good on getting back to the gadgets. Good on people for trying the gadgets and trying to get them to communicate, and that's cool. I get that, but yeah, as you say, we don't know that energy. It's like the REM pods. They'll say, you'll hear teams say it won't hurt you. Well, how do we know that a REM pod won't hurt them?
That's a very good one. I've made lots of jokes about that channel where they say this won't hurt you. How do you know?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, maybe they're made of an energy that will hurt, and again, I'd love to be able to talk to some of the people in my life that have passed away, and I'll admit I've tried and they've never spoken back. So what does that mean? Does that mean that they don't exist, or I can't read, I can't hear them, or it's certainly fascinating, that whole thing. But yeah, the psychics one grates me because, as you say, it can give people false hope, and it's a shame.
I mean, really, the psychic one is like, it's the perfect scam. You're providing a service where only you can, let's just call it the product, who the person who's passed away. I know that's dehumanizing, but as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist anyway. But it's like the psychic is providing a service where only they can see the product, they can speak to the product, they can interact with the product, and it's like, it's the perfect scam. And then what happens is that when it doesn't go their way, they have all these excuses, like they'll blame off. It's very, very common that they will blame the person who is trying to seek speaking to their loved one. So it'll be like, oh, you're bringing negative energy to this. So if you don't believe, it's your fault. It's not their fault for not being able to do it. It'll be my fault if I go there and I say, no, you've got this wrong, you got that wrong. Oh, you're bringing a negative energy. The spirits won't talk to me because you're blocking the psychic. They know how to get around.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same as the ones who'll say, like, they can see the future. These people that say they can remote view and that. I've heard them on old Art Bell shows where they'll say, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, but if it doesn't, it's because it's another timeline.
Yeah, convenient, isn't it?
So it's kind of like, okay, it's a bit Star Trek-ish, but but it's kind of weird, that whole thing. And I mean, again, I'd like the one final thing before I have another break. We talk about, say, psychics. We talk about the gadgets, and even the ghost box, and even the cell phone ones with the silly word banks and right. You're going to places, and especially the UK. Now, I've watched a lot of these ones, and some of the teams in the UK where they're in 1,000-year-old buildings, right? And so they're calling out, and again, for shits and giggles, let's say the spirit world exists. You're calling out in modern English. See, but having done a lot of Shakespearean theatre, I've read a lot of Elizabethan English, right, and studied it because I had to when I was lighting shows. I had to understand it, right? So like, let's just say you're in an old Tudor house. And like, I think that ancient Ram Inn looks a bit Tudorish to me. So you're in there, right? And there's a ghost who's from that era. And you're saying, hey, my name's Sig, and this is the Roadie, and we're here, we want to talk to the... what's the chances of, if that person died in that time, right? And say they can hear you, they might not bloody understand you, because English back then was quite different.
They're hearing nonsense as far as they're concerned. I could do you one. I mean, you're completely right. I could do you one better with that. It's like, I've seen YouTubers go to Japan and just try and communicate to the ghosts in English.
I was going to say, I've seen that too. I've seen that in German. There was a place in Germany where they did that, and I'm thinking, well, hang on. Likely, if the ghost exists, they speak German, or even perhaps a form of pre-modern German. So again, you kind of. But I've had people say to me, "Oh, but when you get to the other side, language is universal."
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that convenient truth, and then it just so happens to be English.
Exactly.
Like that universal language.
Exactly. You're on Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie, my very special guest, the Side-Eye Guy. Will be right back shortly.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie on Rocket FM.
To take us into the break, here is from 1995, Christchurch band Tempest and Believer. back with the side-eye guy here on the show. Now, I want to go away from the spirit world for a little bit with you, mate. And we're going to talk about UFOs and cryptids to end the show up. Now, I guess my interest from a little kid, because Star Trek, man. I grew up with Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica and all that sort of shit, right? I'm a believer that in the wide universe out there has to be other civilizations, right? We can't be the only civilization here. Now, the question again is, can a civilization reach a point where they can travel across the universe in time, in a short time, and be able to visit things? And again, Star Trek, where the warp drive folds the time and stuff and space. And now, to me, for years I thought, UFOs are visiting. They're here. They're alien beings. They're here and stuff. And in recent years, and this is just my thinking, and then I'll throw it to you, I've started to think, maybe they are extraterrestrial, but they're like Voyager or Pioneer. They're a probe that's been sent out. And what we're seeing are robotic probes from another solar system that have travelled thousands of years. But I'd like to think maybe the extraterrestrials are here, but again, the other thing is, it's a little bit like you said earlier, solid proof. We have people come up and say they've seen aliens, say they've interacted with them, but we don't have any actually solid proof of it. What's your thoughts?
We don't have solid proof, but we do have, I would say, what looks like more. I mean, how many of them are faked or how many of them are just more rational things? Who knows? But there does seem to be quite a lot of video evidence, or video footage, I should say, not evidence, video footage of UFOs, and UFOs meaning exactly what the acronym is, your unidentified flying objects. We do have that. Now, we just don't, they're unidentified, so we don't know. So, and that's interesting. So UFOs is one that I'm very much, because I've never done a UFO video, so I'm not like, my interest in UFOs doesn't really spread as far as like anything with the side-eye guy related. It's just what I'm interested in, if you know what I mean. I agree with you. I think in the vastness of this unfathomable size of the universe, that there must be, statistically, there must be other civilizations of intelligent life.
Some of them must be older and more advanced, surely.
Yeah, I mean, even if there's just like a handful, but surely there must be some that are more advanced. We can't be the only ones, and I would say it's unlikely that we're the most advanced. But so the question comes down to like, have they reached over here? And if they have reached over here, why haven't they made contact? And if they have made contact, why are they happy to just keep it as we're only going to communicate with this world's, leaders and not go any further? We're not going to spread any kind of message to the Earth. We're just going to talk to the leaders of Earth. I don't know. There's a lot of questions, because there's a lot of questions where before you kind of get to the how, it's more the why. Exactly.
And the fascinating thing is that you can't discount them entirely, because you talk about video footage now, but you go back in history and there's things, and the thing that interests me the most is in New Zealand, and I know this happened in the UK and in America too, different within 10 years of this, but in 1909 we had what they called an airship flap, right? So we're talking 1909, we haven't quite got manned flight properly, it's just happened sort of thing, but right across New Zealand there was all these sightings of what people described as airships, so zeppelins, right, flying up harbours and flying over hills, and people were looking up going, that's an airship, because in their mind that's what they would have seen was an airship, right? So looking at it logically, you go, well, okay, if it was simply an airship, if it was there was newspaper reports saying, it's some mad inventor in the hill. If it's an airship, who's making an airship, and why are they flying around and being evasive, right? Because it was at a time when we were starting to establish air travel ourselves, and surely if you're making an airship and you're flying around New Zealand, you're like, wow, this is, I'm going to show everyone I've invented this airship. It happened in Australia around the same time. It was in the UK in the 1890s and America in the 1890s. There was this flap of airships. So something happens. Things have been around. And as you say, even in modern times, we're seeing video footage of something that's unidentified and stuff. And I am like you. Why would you only kind of interact with the leaders? But then again, everything I learned in life I learned from Star Trek. And I know Star Trek's a fictional thing, right? But when you look at them, they have the prime directive where they don't interfere in a civilization. And perhaps it's like that. We'll observe, we'll interact with the world leaders.
The answer for that could just simply be a courtesy. You've got to speak to the world leader. But there's been different worlds. If this has been going on for hundreds, if you believe in aliens helping built the pyramids, you're talking thousands of years, and they've over all this time, hundreds or thousands or decades or however long you want to say it is. There's been different world leaders. Governments change all the time, and they've just stayed with world leaders. I can understand that. Just hey, you don't want to go beyond the world leaders because that might be an act of aggression or all the rest of it. I can get that to an extent, but then why is it still to this day like that?
Exactly, and I guess you could look at it through history, though, how it evolved. I guess going back to biblical times where, I kind of equate it to my mind. I'm a primitive man wandering around a desert and I see a flame, and in my mind it's a flame, but it's actually a spacecraft, right? And the ancient Hindus had the Vimanas and all this sort of the Incas, and, so back then perhaps they interacted with the everyday person a little bit more, Egyptians for example, because they were either interbreeding with them or they were like in the Pharaoh's case, they were set up as a leader, and the people kind of, you're a god. But as we evolved and became more intelligent, they kind of pulled back a little bit and said, the everyday person's going to work us out, and Cletus is going to come out with his shotgun and blow us away or something. You know what I mean?
Maybe, but I would say this, if they have the technology to reach us, they don't have to fear us.
Well, that's true, and that's why I'm beginning to think that perhaps some of them are unmanned probes from somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like a Voyager.
I can understand that, because also the amount of time it would take to reach Earth, it would make sense if it was machine. But there's something organic, there's something like biological, because life can only span for so long, and if you're going to how long is it? I know we're talking about their technology be far greater than ours and all the rest of it, but doesn't it take? Were they saying that if you got a spaceship to go to Mars, it would take 20 years or something?
I think Mars is not that. Mars is only about a year or something, but I think it's...
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's... I think it's further out. Jupiter or something's a bit longer, but I know what you're saying, but for me it's a fascinating thing, because again, perhaps it's something on Earth, perhaps the people who are searching for spirits, right, are looking in the wrong place. UAPs might be the spirits.
Right.
You see what I mean? It's a fascinating road to go down. And then, as I say, as I've evolved and got older, I've suddenly starting to think about other explanations. When I was a kid, it was definitely aliens, right? That was
yeah.
But you're starting to think maybe the spirit world is actually connected with the UFO world, and we're not quite getting it.
I've heard that theory as well.
Yeah.
I've heard, much like you're saying, they could just be extraterrestrials that are communicating through that. I've heard a lot of these sort of theories over time, but I just need some guidance for one of them.
Yeah, one day they might just decide the world's in a perilous state, and they're just going to reveal themselves and say we're going to sort this place out. I don't know, but it's
or they'll kill us all. The thing I most get worried about is you'd like to think if aliens are can reach us, that maybe they've evolved to a more peaceful state than we're bastards.
Just before I wrap things up, have you ever looked into, when you've done your debunking, have you ever looked into any of the cryptid sort of things?
Actually, I'm working on, or I've just finished, it's not out yet, but I've just finished a video on mountain monsters. Have you ever seen that show? It's pretty much a comedy. It's so ridiculous. But Yeah, so I've just been like looking. They're talking about trying to find a cave creature, like a cryptid 7 foot powerful cave creature would be quite small, to fit in the crevices of a cave. But no, this thing's 7 foot. So again, it comes down to a little bit like we were talking about what's likely and more likely and the rest of it. The vastness of space. Um, you know, there surely there must be intelligent life. I remember a long time ago now, I was flying over America, USA, and it was one of those clear days, not a cloud in the sky kind of days, and I could see so much of America. I might have been flying over Colorado or the Midwest or something like that, and it was unbelievable how much endless land there was, that there's no civilization there whatsoever, just green, pure green, just forest or mountains, forest and mountains everywhere. There's a huge amount, this is just America, like, let alone like maybe Siberia or, other, like Alaska or Antarctica or all the rest of it, where there's like huge mass of land which is pretty much not touched by humans. Am I going to say that? Let's just use Bigfoot, for example. Am I going to say Bigfoot is real? No, for the exact same reasons I said before. I need evidence. I want to believe in it. Who doesn't want to believe in Bigfoot? Everybody wants to believe in Bigfoot. Everybody.
Exactly. I do too. But the one thing for me is you would need to have a population, surely, for it to have lasted as long as it has.
Yeah. And it needs to be somewhat healthy one, or you're then talking about inbreeding. So, and then, that usually, when you get like, huge generational inbreeding, they don't last very long, they don't live very long, and there's lots of deformities and all sorts of genetic issues comes in with that. So that's what it comes down to. Now, I will say, like, I outright don't believe, because like there's some people out there that think that Bigfoot can go between dimensions and all that sort of stuff. I think that's all complete nonsense.
I think that's become a I've listened to a few radio shows about that on Coast to Coast, and I think that's become the out, as it were, as we were talking about before. A lot of the researchers will be asked the question as well, have you found any carcasses? Have you found any bones, graves, whatever? Oh, well, they travel between dimensions. That's why we can't find them. And that's the out. And I don't like that. Again, that makes the credibility of the whole thing in doubt,
Yeah, because exactly, when you can't figure out answers for that, you just make up nonsense. And, you can't debunk such a ridiculous claim. But again, it comes down to who has the burden of proof. If you're going to suggest such a wild claim, you're the ones who need to back that up. It's not down to us to disprove that, because it's a silly statement as far as I'm concerned. So, do I believe in Bigfoot? I'd like to. Statistically, I would say it's not impossible, but God, I'm waiting for the day where that happens. It would be amazing.
Well, the thing with Bigfoot is when years ago, growing up, it was basically in the northwest of the United States, and I could kind of buy that maybe up in the Washington, Seattle, Washington, Oregon, up there where there's a lot of forest, maybe there's a population hidden there. But now we get them all over America, and you kind of think, well, if there's a population of an ape that's that spread out, the odds are that you've got to actually get one. If it was just in a little place, like, for example, in the South Island here where I live, down beyond Queenstown is Fiordland, which is a lot of just, fjords and jungle and things that just aren't, places that are inaccessible, right? And there's been the odd native bird that they thought was extinct that they found in there years later because the population was in there, no one could get to it, right? No predators could get to it. I could buy if it was still just Oregon and Washington, the small part of a forest there that's untouched. Maybe the population's in there, but when you start saying, oh, they're in Alabama and they're in New York, and you're just think, well, there's that many of them spread out. You can't tell me that someone hasn't found something. It's kind of yeah. That's when you start to think of people just making it up. Again, the money thing. Oh, we've got a Bigfoot in our neighbourhood. Come and look for it.
Money's an incentive, and I've always said this on my channel. I was like, never, ever, ever underestimate the need for attention. Attention is a drug. Attention is so critical or so crucial for a lot of people. And if they can make up a story, whether it be aliens, ghosts, cryptids, whatever you want to say, and it gets them attention, it gets people listening to them. There's a lot of lonely people out there, and if they can think of a story like that and it gets them attention, that's a drug. That they'll just hold on to that.
One more cryptid before we go. This is the one that does intrigue me, though. And again, this is, in my mind, gets back to you need a population. The Loch Ness Monster. Oh. Now, it's been spotted for, 800 years, supposedly.
Yeah,
supposedly.
Like that, yeah.
So there would have to be a population of them in that lake, but there's been sonar scans, everything. Nothing's around. So if there's something there, what the hell is it?
There's nothing there. I've been to Loch Ness. It's not that big. This is the thing that it comes down to that whole. And I know the argument they'll make is that there's tunnels underneath the loch, goes to other places, blah blah blah. Like, sorry, don't buy it. They, like you said, they've sonar scanned the whole loch. There's nothing there. The very very first sighting, the famous photo we know of Nessie, we now know is a hoax. Well documented that it was a hoax. When people go there, they say they've seen this, say they've seen that. Whether there's alcohol involved, and attention. It comes back largely to attention, especially at one stage in the UK. Like, if you said you saw there was a Nessie sighting, you could be on the news. Hey, look at me, I'm on the paper. You're talking about working class people that just go to work, go to the pub, go back to their families every single day. It gets monotonous, and one day you could just sort of say this thing, and then all of a sudden your life can change. You become a celebrity. I think that is a part of it as well. But to me, the Loch Ness Monster is complete and utter nonsense. Like, if the idea that there was like this prehistoric, underwater creature. Hey, if you're going to talk about the vastness of the ocean, yeah, sure. Put it this way, I don't think mermaids are real. I would give mermaids a point or two above the Loch Ness Monster.
Fair enough. Well, see, to me with the Loch Ness Monster, right, the stories go back 800 years or so to a time when something was spotted back then. And in my mind, perhaps something was back there then, okay? A giant eel or something back there then that was legitimately there, but of course died off, and population died off. And so that created the legend that people could just keep using as the years go by.
I mean, possibly. Personally, I don't buy it. I don't know how such a large creature would be in Scotland of all places. I don't know if there's even a food source around Loch Ness to keep a creature that big, or allegedly that big, sustained. Again, even if it was 800 years ago, there would still need to be a population. There would still need to be several of them at some point. I don't know. Like, a lot of it just doesn't add up to me.
Fair enough, indeed. And again, I want to believe, and hopefully somebody will get evidence or proof in one of these areas one day in our lifetimes.
Hey, I've always said this. People kind of think to me that I'm going to have egg on my face and all the rest of it. I'd be the first person to have egg on my face. I'd love to be proven wrong.
Oh, for sure. I'm the same with the radio stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can manipulate radio frequency. I'm yet to see it, but prove it to me conclusively, and I'll stop going on about it.
There's nothing wrong with wanting evidence or having evidence to back. Wanting to see evidence to back up extraordinary claims. Cliche, but extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence.
And as I always end the show, see, I always say, the quote from Project Blue Book, it's swamp gas. It's always swamp gas.
Yeah.
And with that, that's the end of this episode. So just before we go, the Side-Eye Guy channel, check it out on YouTube. That's the show. Here's Sins of Eve, as usual, to take the show out with creeping. I'll see you next time.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
falling for